Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. That makes this the news for Tuesday, April 29th, day 1161 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and I'm coming to you live at 5 from Kyiv, this major European capital currently under siege. And I see that the peeps are coming in. There's Jose. There's Daryl Roberts. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Mike Kelly. How's everybody doing tonight? Greetings, Holly. Owls are magic. Yes, they are. Hey, Hardley. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Roy Daniels. Hey, Chef Deb. Hey, Wes. I used to have a buddy named Wes from out like Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, out that way. Hey, Nicola, Nana Pam. Love from Texas. How do Texas? It's a good name. Yes, it is. Hey, Bobby. I was thinking of you, Bobby, today. I don't know if you saw the news we are waking up to, but I actually said something in that related to conversations and comments we've had about things. Hey, Bachmut. Hey, PH. Hey, Nightshade. Hey, Dark Irish. Monrovia Home Chef. I love food. Yes, I do. How is everybody doing tonight? Trolls are boring. Yes, they are. They don't have the money for them, Lars. They don't have the money for the good ones anymore. You know, they're outsourcing everything. Did you hear about the troll farm in Ghana? 4 months. They didn't pay the bills. And now the Kremlin isn't answering their calls. They hired a bunch of suckers in South Africa to replace them. Like they think they're going to get paid. We're okay, laddie. Hey, Sammy. Doing okay. Had a lovely evening here in Kyiv. The weather has been fabulous. Hey, Mike now. Hey, Mel. Hey, Di. Hey, Bip. Really, the weather has gotten very nice here. It certainly has. Hey, Van. All right, well, Van is here. We can get started. So first things first, big shout out, big thank you to Chris Carter, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. And Chris is a longtime friend of this channel, and I really appreciate him. So everybody say thank you to Chris Carter if we see him tonight. Now, last night's missile and drone attacks against Ukraine. No missiles, which is not surprising to me. Missile stores have suffered. They have to have. 3 of the major arsenals of the Russian Federation have been blown up. Everything in them destroyed. We do not have confirmation of this. But increasingly, the chatter across Telegram and across other channels is that the North Koreans had just sent a whole new batch of KN-23, shiny new KN-23 missiles to the Russians, and they were being unloaded at the 51st Arsenal when it was hit. That's huge, right? It was a KN-23 that took out that building here in Kyiv. Just last week. So they have to be suffering. Now, last night we saw only 100 drones. And I know that's a lot, right? But until recently, they were sending 189, 200 a night. A night. So it's half of that. And Ukrainian mobile defense forces and elements of the Air Force and armed services took out 84 of those 100 drones, 84% interception rate. One drone did land here in Kyiv. There were 3 people injured, including 1 child, because, of course, it was a civilian target that was hit. It's the same old, same old. Now, last night, while we were here on the live, right, like literally as it was happening in real time, Nightshade says, hey, Novorossyisk is on fire. And sure enough, it was. It's very unclear what happened. It's very unclear. We still have yet to hear an official damage assessment or mission specs from the Ukrainians. And it could be that that's because the Ukrainians want to keep it quiet. There is a lot of chatter that the attack on Novorossyisk last night was a combination strike of Ukrainian unmanned sea drones acting as a drone platform to send out drone swarms to exhaust air defense and hit targets. And then a secondary Neptune missile hit. So while air defense is busy with your drone swarm, you bring in this missile. Now, look, we do not know that that's what happened. I want to be very clear about that. This is not confirmed. However, it would explain why we're not hearing about it, while the military is entirely quiet on it. It could also explain why they used a Neptune missile. Because you shouldn't have to. You should, right, to hit what they hit. Just like the parking lot where there was a bunch of cars between 2 small oil depots and a hotel. It's not clear. It's not clear what they were aiming at. Did they miss? Was this a test of the combined arms maneuver of unmanned sea drones acting as an aerial platform for aerial unmanned drones with a combination missile strike, right? Like, was it a test of that? Right, they're not going to tell us that if that's what it was. Regardless of what it was, there is no doubt that Russia is on fire still today. It's unclear also what is burning. Many people are reporting that it's the oil tanks burning, but looking at the video evidence of it, I don't see that. Now, maybe it's poor quality, I can't tell, it's an optical illusion. Maybe that's what it is. But it appears much more to be the logistics area and all the trucks that were in there. Now, again, if the Ukrainians, right, because the Ukrainians have partisans working all over Russia. If the Ukrainians got wind that they were like moving a bunch of ammunition inside of these commercial trucks, that would make the trucks a great target. Another thing that keeps coming up about great targets to hit, 70, right? So first of all, everybody here knows that Russia loves trains. Russia's logistics, the logistics of the Russian army, are heavily dependent upon the movement of men, equipment, and ammunition via trains. Here's something really interesting, though. 70% of the rail network is electric, with their own substations, their own power supplies, their own power plants, electric. There is an increasing chatter among military analysts that suggests that it is time for Ukraine to start striking the electric substations of the electric rail system and paralyzing Russian rail that way. There is the potential to paralyze it. Now, some of the arguments that I've read that this is not an effective strategy include simply, it's electric. You can wire it into any power supply, and the Russians have lots of power supplies, right? They've got lots of nuclear plants, lots of thermal heating generating plants, lots of cogeneration facilities. They produce a lot of electricity. They can just rewire them. Then there is the thought that some of these substations are located too far away from other power sources to make that a viable option. And if you hit those substations, that could have a dramatic effect. So it's speculation on my part that this is just based on what I've been reading lately, that maybe the Ukrainians will start to look at these as viable targets. We might see that happen in the coming months. What does seem to be clear is that last night in Novorossyisk, it does seem to have been a drone strike, or a drone missile strike, or a missile strike, not just an industrial accident. It does appear that way at this time, despite Ukraine's silence on the matter. Novorossyisk is burning, no doubt about it. And it could mean that oil infrastructure is back on the menu. Now, it is my considered opinion, and here we are strictly in the realm of opinion, that the Ukrainians have been extremely patient and disciplined in their approach to this war, following all the rules of engagement, not targeting civilians, not targeting civilian infrastructure, taking care of POWs that are captured on the field, right? They've been doing it all. Most importantly, in my opinion, what they have not done ever is hit oil export infrastructure. Now, look, the Kremlin makes its money on oil export infrastructure, right? That's how they fund the murder of Ukrainians every single day. Now, could it be, now that the price of oil has plunged, now that hitting export infrastructure should not affect the global price of oil and trigger a recession, because Trump's already done that. I don't know if you heard, but he's talking about getting rid of the IRS too and just making the whole federal budget on tariffs. It's insanity. So Trump's already assured us of a global recession and oil prices continuing to plunge. Why not start hitting Moscow's infrastructure? Do the world a favor. Cut off some of the supply. Buoy the price of oil, right? Maybe we can avoid a recession. You're not going to avoid it now, no matter what. But taking a little of the oil supply off the market would stabilize the American oil business. That's for sure. I can certainly say that much. It's time to hit oil export infrastructure. It's time. It's time. That'll put Russia on its knees if they do that. Now, again, that is solely my opinion. The Ukrainians are very sensitive. They manage their international relations far better than I manage my personal ones. Let's put it that way. So they're doing a great job there. Novorossyisk is on fire, and that's what we know about that. Also, Trump did more, right, for the, I forget what the party is called in Canada, but the not conservative party. Trump has done more to unify our allies against us. The Liberal Party, okay, they're called liberals, okay. Has done more to unify our allies against us. Unify our allies, our friends, our neighbors, the people who are supposed to have our shared values. Only we're really letting them down these days. Oh, Roy, you guys are going to suffer bad. Roy, do you know how many auto manufacturers there were in the United States in 1910? Do you have any idea? Can anybody guess? Can anybody guess how many auto manufacturers there were in the United States in 1910? Roy Daniel says 20. It's less than that today, right, Roy? What's it down to now in the U.S.? How many car makers do we have in the U.S. today? If you include, and I would include Toyota, who makes a lot of theirs in the U.S. I don't know. I think it's less than 20. I think it's less than 20. Is it 37? Or is that a guess on the other one? Okay. Anyway, if I'm not mistaken, the number of auto manufacturers in the United States in 1910 was 500. What happens? I didn't say American automobile makers. I said manufacturers operating in the United States. Toyota is most certainly an automobile manufacturer operating in the United States. So when cars were brand new, when anybody who had a tool and die shop could make all the parts to make a car, there were 500, right? Everybody got into the game. Everybody was trying their hand at it. And over time, consolidation in the industry left us with very few manufacturers, right? And of course, Michael, it's a whole different world today where you're buying components from a double dozen different countries and you're assembling them in a plant with a lot of robotics. That's the modern supply chain. What Trump has done is shatter the supply chain. Shatter it. Break it. To demonstrate to Americans the cost of these idiocy tariffs, Amazon is now changed its price stickers. It now says what the price is and then how much more the tariff made it. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do, right? Show the American people what they're doing. The Trump administration is ready to sue them over it, calling it a hostile action. Yeah, hostile in favor of the consumer. Trump wants to do away with the IRS and generate all federal revenues from tariffs, a new tax on the American people. It's obscene, absolutely obscene. And it hits working families so much harder than it hits the rich. It's unbelievable. I mention all of this because, again, we don't have to worry about trying to bolster the price of oil. The Ukrainians can do it for us by taking the Russian supply off the market and choking the Kremlin fiscally, denying them the funding for their genocidal lunacy here in Ukraine. What, if you took Russian production off the market? I don't think so, Bill. Not with the way things are going. I mean, come on. You seen a satellite photograph of the Port of Los Angeles lately? That's a lot of oil not getting burned, is what that is, pal. Mel had asked the question, what's happening in the Russian natural gas sector? Because, of course, Russia has the largest proven reserves of natural gas. And natural gas made up a significant, natural gas revenues and the taxes from the sale of natural gas made up a large percentage of the Russian federal budget prior to the full-scale invasion. Gas sales are in the toilet, Mel. Nord Stream is shut down. Nord Stream 2 never came to fruition. All the other gas lines into Europe, save one, are shut down. They don't have the LNG facilities to convert it to liquefied natural gas and put it on boats. There's very little of that to go around in Russia, and the Ukrainians took a bunch of it offline by hitting it up there by Murmansk. Or no, St. Petersburg. Pardon me, that was in St. Petersburg. Port of St. Petersburg. Now, the real coffin nails, right? In the gas industry, the natural gas industry in Russia, we look at Gazprom. Gazprom was the single largest producer of natural gas in Russia, mostly state-owned enterprise, and they have now laid off 50% of the workforce at their main headquarters and at the secondary headquarters. So that's something like 3,000 people out of work at a business that had been a cash cow with profits annualized of about $20 billion a year. Last year, we saw Gazprom with a 6.9 billion, or just about 7 billion US dollar loss. We do not know how much they lost this year because they have not told us. I'm sorry, for fiscal 2024. We don't know what the losses were because they haven't let us know. They are asking the Russian federal government for a couple trillion rubles as a bailout. So that tells you where Gazprom is at. And the thing about the gas business, Mel, that's different from the oil business. With the oil business, you want to put it through a pipeline, but if you can't, you can put it on a ship. Increases costs, you have transport fees, but you can put it on ships, right? You can't do that with natural gas without building a $250 million condensation facility to turn natural gas into liquefied natural gas so that it can then be transported. They're not out of work. They're in the army now. Not these guys. They all fled to Cyprus. They're all in Phuket, ruining it for everybody else, is what's going on there. Did Gazprom used to advertise at football games? Interesting. Yeah, no, they're fucked, dude. I don't see how they can recover. Those gas pipelines will never be turned back on. Europe is done. Now, parts of Central Europe, landlocked countries particularly, Slovakia, Hungary, Moldova, and Czech Republic, with the exception of the Czech Republic, all are still dependent on Russian natural gas. There's one pipeline going to them, if I'm not mistaken. Life as a Russian oil exec is more dangerous than being a Russian soldier. Yes, it is. Never say never. Never say never, except in this case. Nobody wants to put money in the Russian pocket. The country currently known as the Russian Federation is never going to get those taps turned back on. It's not until after the collapse of the Russian Federation, when the independent Russian states mature, that we'll be able to get those pipelines turned back on. But this government, no, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen. Mel, I believe that the Ukrainians are working on an intermediate range ballistic missile. They showed it off a while ago, but I'm not sure how critical it is. I don't know that that's a priority right now. I don't know. I just don't know. I haven't heard anything. We got news today. Now, we saw over the weekend the lieutenant general, the chief deputy of the main military directorate operational facilities for the Russian Federation. I forget his name now, Malisov, was assassinated in Moscow. Now, at the time of the assassination, I didn't know who did it, right? How could you? These people have lots of enemies inside Russia as well as outside of Russia. So until somebody takes responsibility, you have no idea, right? Well, today, the GUR, the main military intelligence directorate of the Ukrainians, took responsibility for his execution. Now, I have some fabulous quotes here. These are from the Secretary of Ukraine's National Security Committee, Roman Kostenko, who confirmed in an interview today the elimination of this top Russian general near Moscow. What can I say? He said. I'm pleased. This is the right work for our intelligence services. I believe we must understand that even if we reach a ceasefire soon, the work of intelligence services will only just be beginning. This will become the primary mission of our intelligence services and the SBU to ensure these people are punished no matter where they are. They should be afraid even to leave their homes, let alone leave the territory of the Russian Federation. What did I say when I did the video on this guy? They're not safe anywhere they go. There's nowhere they can run. You can run, but you can't hide. Ukraine is coming for you. Period. End of conversation. Did they really? It's a new dawn. I mean, I didn't see that anywhere. That would be quite an accomplishment, given that they have only sent 400,000 rounds so far to date, and they've been at it for nearly a year. So for them in one shot to send 4 times as much as it's taken them a year to get here, that would be quite an accomplishment. Can anybody validate what It's a New Dawn is saying? Does anybody have a source for this? Now, on the subject of the 3-day ceasefire, right? Well, I'll have to take a look for it after. At any rate, I can neither confirm nor deny what It's a New Dawn is saying. I just don't know. Did the Czechs send more 155 millimeter or other ammunition? I don't know, Michael. This is the first I'm hearing of this. To the best of my knowledge, the Czech Shell Initiative to date has rendered 155 millimeter shells to Ukraine, and the count is at 400,000. That's the best of my knowledge to date. Now, regarding the 3-day ceasefire, which President Zelensky has very clearly said, it's bullshit. We should do a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. And Moscow said, you're right. We should do 30-day unconditional ceasefire. As long as no one sends you more weapons. We do 30-day unconditional ceasefire with one condition. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. So anyway, strictly by pronouncement of the dear leader, the great Tsar, who has unilaterally, by fiat, dictated a 3-day ceasefire so that no drones come into his and mess up his parade day, right? Like, let's be clear. That's what this ceasefire is about. He wants to not negotiate a ceasefire, not get terms and conditions under which a ceasefire can be policed. But no, he's just going to say it's a ceasefire. And then if the Ukrainians hit him on parade day, he will say, look, Ukraine broke ceasefire. Bullshit. There's no ceasefire. You want to declare unilaterally that you're going to stop shooting, and you think that's going to end the war. All you've done is acknowledge that you could stop this war anytime you want, you fucking hypocrite. Like, that's all you've accomplished. So Dmitry Peskov, yesterday in an interview, he had a lot to say this weekend. I quoted him a lot. He said a 30-day ceasefire is not currently possible until all details are settled. He's quoting, or he's towing, the Lavrov line, the maximalist goals of the Russian Federation. We will have no ceasefire until Ukraine surrenders. That's what they're saying. Until Ukraine withdraws from our territories, acknowledges that our territories are ours. What else? Right? Like you return the 300 billion in frozen assets to us. All this bullshit, these maximalist demands of the aggressor, their demands to be rewarded for their ongoing 3 years of the worst crimes against humanity that you can imagine, including the theft of Ukrainian children. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. J.D. Vance, of course, is not helping at all. He said if this thing goes on for another few years, millions more could be killed. Okay, well, first of all, millions haven't been killed, right? Yada, yada. Zelensky's whole response to this. Anybody who has to have the real in their name, like the real TV or whatever, you know immediately that they're fakes, that they're frauds, that they're liars, that they're cheats, that they're duplicitous with an agenda. If you're real, all you have to do is be, and people know you're real. What a joke. Anyway, so Zelensky says, Russia continues to manipulate the world, trying to deceive the U.S. Now, another attempt at manipulation. For some reason, everyone is supposed to wait until May 9th before ceasing fire, just so Putin can have his parade. We value human lives, not parades. That's why we believe, and the world believes, that there is no reason to wait until May 8th. The ceasefire should not be just for a few days, only to return to killing afterwards, President Zelensky. Which seems to me to be a perfectly reasonable response to this Nile River of bullshit, or should I say, denial river of bullshit that's coming out of the Kremlin. And out of the White House, by the way, who are saying the same fucking things. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. We really are living in the worst timeline. The Australians have a bunch of Abrams tanks that they want to send to Ukraine. To the best of my knowledge, the Ukrainians want them. Now, maybe the tank is not it was not the weapon it once was, right? In the age of drone warfare, that might be the case. I am not a weapons expert. I'm not a military person. I can't say. But gosh, if I was the Ukrainians, I'd want a bunch of Abrams. I sure would. You already got the guys who can maintain them. You got the mechanics. You got the technicians. You got the operator teams that can train more teams, right? And the Abrams take a beating, boy, and they keep you alive while they do it. So Australia, this is according to ABC News, Australia is reportedly holding back the promised M1A1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine because the U.S. has refused to greenlight it. Why? Why? One of our allies wants to help another one of our allies. Why would we stop that? And of course, the answer is obvious if one accepts the reality that everything Donald Trump does, he does to benefit the Kremlin and himself. Himself first. Let's make that clear. Benefit himself first, but his plans all align with the Kremlin plans. You know, Bip, I would love for the Australians to say, fuck you, we're sending the tanks. I mean, what else are they, what else are we going to do? We going to attack Australia? I mean, come on. This is outrageous. Outrageous. It's just like, did you see the White House green lighted the sale of, oh, I want to say 10. Was it 10? It was a bunch of Patriot systems to Romania. So, okay, Romania wants Patriots. Romania needs Patriots. Romania wants to buy Patriots. Good. Sell Romania some Patriots. I'm in favor of that. Ukraine wants to buy Patriots. This Zelensky, he always wants to buy missiles. Do the deal, $15 billion into the U.S. defense industry. Let them churn out some more Patriots. Ugh. Anyway. All right. That's it for me. That's the top line news for the day. Again, I want to thank our sponsor, Chris Carter, for all his support over the last almost 2 years now. Almost 2 years. June 6th will be the 2-year anniversary of this channel. So I hope you all stick around. Well, Bobby, see, so the problem there is Romania can't just buy a bunch of Patriots and then turn around and sell them to somebody else. With weapon sales, we exercise something called export control. So if we're selling them to Romania as a stipulation of the sale, they are for Romania. If Romania wants to ever resell them in the future, by virtue of the export control, they must get U.S. permission. This is what's holding up the Abrams. The U.S. can veto the resale of our military hardware and technology. Yes. Yes. Trump's throwing away business. Trump's whole goal is to destroy the American economy. That's his whole goal. It's a goal. It's not a side effect. It's not a bug. It's not that he's ignorant. He knows exactly what he's doing. You can't be a Wharton graduate and not understand what tariffs are. That's not a thing. So why would he do this? He would do it so that him and his billionaire friends can have the greatest fire sale in history, the assets of the greatest engine for generating wealth that the world has ever known, the American system of government. Big D, as I understand it, depending on the agreements, export controls can control both, right? The resale of the equipment or the passing it on to another third-party country. He wants to be emperor for life of the world. Well, the only thing is, Thomas, it's a little bit different from a PC because PCs don't blow people up and cause international incidents. And the last thing that you want is one of your allies selling weapons to another one of your allies who's fighting against one of your allies. You know, I mean, look, export controls are real things. We have to deal with them. You can argue their efficacy or their legitimacy all you want, but they're a real thing. Oh, Carol Lee, from your lips to God's ear. You're welcome, PH. Oh, Savkus. I got to tell you, pal, he may be old, but the network of the modern global supply chain has taken 80 years to develop. It is a delicate, fragile thing, susceptible to shock. And Trump has just shocked it badly. The consequences of what he has done to date will be felt for years. Even if it's stopped now, which it's not going to. The consequences will take years to recover from. And it will take United States that pulls its head out of its ass and gets back in the 21st century. He wants a return to a 19th century economy where most of the people are desperately poor and a few people own everything. The so-called Gilded Age. Hello, Lithuania. I got to get to Lithuania sometime. It's definitely something I got to do. It's a big old world. Midas Touch says we will feel the effect in the U.S. in 2 to 3 weeks. So, Bip, it's my understanding that the executives from Walmart and Target, I want to say, was it Walmart and Target? It was Walmart and another large big box realtor. Just had a meeting with Trump and told him exactly, RK News, there will be empty shelves. It was Home Depot, thank you. Whoever it was, right? It was big retailers. They're already feeling it. Dairy farmers in New York are already declaring bankruptcy because they cannot feed their cows. Steve McStevens, that's what I said, right? I told that kid before about, or whoever it was. Somebody objected to me saying if you take Russian oil off the market, it would be good for the world. And I said, no, we need to take Russian oil off the market for the good of the world because the tariffs are slowing business down so much that if you look at a recent satellite photo of the port of Los Angeles and then compare it, say, to a recent satellite photo of a port in Singapore or a port in the Zhangzhou area of China, it's night and day. The ships are lined up at the Chinese ports to take on goods. They're just not coming to America. The port of Los Angeles is empty. Empty. Normally, there would be container ships lined up to come into the country. Remember, this is a just-in-time economy. Very few durable goods are ordered 12 months out, sure. You order your Santa Clauses in March. You order your pumpkins in January, that kind of thing. But most of the daily kind of consumption of fruits and vegetables and personal hygiene products, that's all just-in-time supply chain. And Trump has just shut off the supply. Oh, Nightshade, I believe that's already happening. When is this conflict going to end? God only knows. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know the future. Nobody does. If you had told me 2.5 years ago when I came to Ukraine that 26 months from now, I would be celebrating my 2-year anniversary broadcasting on TikTok about the war, I would have laughed in your face. I was sure this war would be finished by August of that year, and that I would already have been home for 6 months by then. So I have no idea. Farmers are not planting corn and beans around you? Well, the soybean farmers you can understand, right? China buys about 70% of our soybeans. And as I understand it, the number of new soybean contracts in March and April has been nearly nil from the Chinese. They're waiting for the Brazilian harvest instead. Soybean futures in the United States are through the basement. It's going to bankrupt the soybean farmers. There's no doubt about it. Not all of them, obviously, but many of them. Many of them. Yeah, Bip. Yeah, it's coming up on 2 years, pal. June 6th. It'll be 2 years. I mean, to think that Russia will not be defeated is a normal thinking, right? That's normal thinking because the Russians have programmed us all to believe they are invincible. They aren't. And that's why my thinking has changed around the May 9th parade. I would have said it's a bad idea for Ukraine to strike that parade. It's a bad idea to send drones to Moscow that day. A year ago, I definitely would have said that. 6 months ago, I would have said that. Now, no. I think it's the most important thing that the Ukrainians could do right now. Now, I totally understand if they don't, because it's a very risky move. You hit a bunch of civilians, you're going to be in trouble with the world. You're going to give Putin the excuse to say the Ukrainians broke the ceasefire. But I think, it is my opinion, that a whole bunch of drones hitting Moscow the day of the parade would be such a sign of weakness for Putin that I think his own people will eat him alive at that point. Right? You know, Bobby, I mean, look, and this is all just wishful thinking, right? We're not second guessing the Ukrainians. I trust the Ukrainians completely to do the best things that they can with the tiny little amount of long-range weapons that they have. They have very few long-range weapons. They have to make them count. And what count means is probably very different to them than to an amateur like me looking in. But when it comes to this May Day parade, I think about how badly Trump treated Zelensky in the White House. I think about these ceasefires for one day, ceasefire for Easter, ceasefire for May Day parade, because I am the great Tsar from whom all blessings flow, and everyone must do as I say. It makes me crazy. Hey, Tony. And it makes, exactly, Shrimp Man, it makes me petty. Humiliate them. Humiliate them. 100 Peklo drones hitting Moscow the day of the parade. That might be the end of Putin's regime. France has not agreed to the German missiles as far as I am aware. They have not opposed them, but they have not publicly endorsed them. And there is some scuttlebutt going around that the U.S. is trying to veto it. I don't know that they can. It seems, I don't know that they can. I don't know whether or not the Germans will cave to U.S. pressure on that. I don't know. The Zelensky White House visit wasn't just horrible, it was an ambush. And, you know, I'll tell you, I'm not a person to criticize what other men are wearing, But how about Donald Trump in that turquoise blue suit? Or no, cobalt. It was more of a cobalt. Cobalt blue suit. He stood out like a sapphire on a black sand beach, right? For the whole world to see him drooling on his silk tie when he fell asleep for most of the funeral. And God, Melania, she is just such an ugly person. Now that's a good point about the parade. Ukraine is likely concerned about hitting foreign dignitaries. It's a fair point. That's a legitimate political concern. Hey, Arn. Oh my God, there's a picture of the two of them at the funeral. They look like the most awful people in the world. Like if you spotted these two at a party, you would think to yourself, ooh, what kind of people are Bob and Linda hanging out with these days? So you know what? So don't target the parade. Target military installations all around Moscow. Hit the polyethylene factories. Hit the microchip factory. Hit the oil depots. Hit the oil pumping stations. Hit the substations for the electric rail. Right? Hit everything that's a legitimate military target, but let the missiles rain down during the parade. Have the air sirens going like they go here and terrorize children in their classrooms every day. Yeah, I'm probably wrong. You're probably quite right, Cody. I'm probably quite wrong. But it doesn't matter because I don't make policy decisions for the Ukrainians. And no one in their right mind would let me. Why should they? I'm an idiot. I'm just some American idiot with a telephone. That's all I am. I do not disagree, Mel. I think the Kremlin is a legitimate military target. Yeah, did I give you a laugh, Roy? Good. Thank you, Tony. I had heard that the U.S. was objecting to the Abrams delivery, but I hadn't seen anything. ABC News reported it, but I haven't seen anything to confirm it. Do you think Russia will sabotage it? Sabotage what, Di? You know, Steve, that's a good thing. That's a good point, right? Like Merz becomes Chancellor of Germany the 6th of May. That is probably not enough time to get Taurus missiles here. So that would mean you'd have to attack the Crimean Bridge, say, the Kerch Bridge, with naval drone. Oh no. Okay. What was the jet loading in the U.S. in the Ukrainian cargo plane? I don't know. I bet it was probably an F-16 airframe that needed repair or that had been prepared for Ukraine by the U.S. and was on its way here. I don't think we ever found out whether that plane was dropping off or picking up or both. Do it in a DM, Mel. Nicholas, I believe it is. Now, the Ukrainians don't want that. They seem bound and determined, no matter what they have to do, to kiss the royal American ass these days. They seem to be quite willing to do it. And one can understand why. We have, without question, the greatest arsenal from which to supply them with weapons. But if we are not going to supply them with weapons, what good are we? if we are going to deny them NATO membership, what good are we? If we are going to sell them out wholesale, 20% of the country to the Russian aggressor, what good are we? They realize, Little Red, but they're hopeful that, people like John Kennedy, people like Lindsey Graham, people like Don Bacon, that they're going to be able to sway their fellow Congress people to put pressure on Trump to get him back into a world where Russia and the U.S. are enemies. Like, it's so insane to me that one indebted puppet of Putin's gets into the White House and that's it. He can take a chainsaw to our whole democracy, but he sure as fuck can. Hey, Claude. Which European country can take the negotiation lead? I think that's up to the Ukrainians. Who do they want to partner with? Who do they want in the room? And I think very clearly that's the British, the French, and the Germans, at the very least, if it's not the EU itself. Also, there's Turkey. Turkey could be the partner that they need. Or Canada. Canada's not in the EU, right? Like, who brings the juice to get this done, and who does Ukraine want to work with? Those are the questions that the Ukrainians are undoubtedly asking themselves. Poland is stepping up for itself. I'm a little bit disappointed with Poland lately, Bobby. Poland is increasingly focused on its own defense. And one can understand why. They are the major Eastern bulwark against Russian aggression right now. So one can understand that. However, I think one has to ask the question, why should Poland worry about its own defense when Russia is so on the ropes in Ukraine that they could never hope to open another front against the Poles? Why wouldn't the Poles instead invest in Ukrainian defense to actually defeat the Russians? That's my concern around the Poles right now. But there's no doubt that the Poles are going to be one of the best armed groups in Europe when this is done. And no, I do not blame them at all. Scotty, there's no NATO fly zone over Ukraine, nor is there likely to be. The British sent 2 Typhoons, and somebody else sent some other planes. Oh, the Swedes. The Swedes sent some jets. Were they Gripens? Maybe they were Gripens. To Poland, not to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine, but rather to participate in Operation Baltic Sentry, which is the NATO operation that's patrolling the Baltic Sea, watching Russian vessels if they try to damage undersea cable infrastructure. So that story got very confused in the press. The mission is in the Baltic, not Ukraine. Of course they all hate Putin. Who doesn't hate Putin? The only way you don't hate Putin is if you're a sucker, a fool, and you don't pay attention to facts. It was Gripens, right, Mel? Yeah. Okay, guys, it's 1 a.m. here. Again, I want to thank Chris Carter, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. I want to thank Lars, who has the Discord server, and Jay and Travis, our moderators. I'm Peter Alexievich, and I will see everybody in tomorrow night's live. Or if you are a member of the Patreon, look for my morning news segment, News We Are Waking Up To. The Patreon membership is free. However, if you want to help me keep doing this, maybe kick me $5 a month. That would be great. Or if you want to sponsor a live, the PayPal is in the description. Just PayPal me, and you'll get a live sponsorship. All right, thanks, kids. Make it a great day.